Okay, so thank you everybody for coming along. My name's Dan Buzzer from Profit Mechanics, and the reason why I've invited our guest today and put this meeting together is because I've been having a lot of conversations, too many conversations with people, particularly in trade industry, who are really having challenges at the moment, who could have avoided all those challenges or made them a lot smaller if they had have taken the time to get the legal aspects of their business done properly and get them reviewed and things like that. So I've got some great people here, ideal people, and I'm so grateful that you guys were able to come on board because I think this is going to help a lot of people. So I'm going to go around actually and get you guys to introduce yourselves just quickly, and then I've got some specific questions to ask of each of you. So Nigel, can I start off with you? Can you just give us a quick intro, please?
Yeah, I'm Nigel from Aussie Painters Network. We're an information service for the painting industry. We deal with from business owners right down to training of the apprentices. So we've got a fairly broad spectrum with what we do there.
Excellent. And Sandra?
Hi, I'm Sandra from Tradie Bookkeeping Solutions. So we are your one-stop shop for all your bookkeeping based requirements. And thanks for having us here, Dan.
And Penny?
Hi Dan, my name's Penny Corner and I'm the Executive Director for the Master Plumbers Association of Queensland. Master Plumbers is the peak industry body representing plumbing contractors throughout Queensland, anywhere from sole operators through to large contracting firms. Plumbers protect the health and safety of our community and we're so lucky to be representing them today.
Excellent. And Jennifer?
Yes, I'm Jennifer Lowe. Hi, everyone. I'm from the accounting firm Total Tax and Accounting Solutions. So we have quite a lot of small businesses that we look after that sort of run the gamut. So we've been in Forest Lake now for about 10 years. I think this is our 10-year anniversary, and this is the busiest year I can ever remember. So I think this is a great thing to get together.
And lucky last, Helen.
Hi, thanks, Dan. Helen Kay from Rise Legal. I'm a business lawyer and I predominantly help tradies make sure that their contracts are tight and don't cause them any unnecessary legal risk. I help people set up new businesses, run them, grow them, sell them, all the way along the line.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I'm going to start off with Nigel because we had a bit of a chat before, and I guess Nigel is receiving about, you said before, Nigel, about 2 calls a week from people in the painting industry that are in a bit of a tight spot. And my question to you was, what could they have done to make their lives a little bit easier to not be in this situation? In your view, what would be some really basic things that people just don't seem to be doing?
Well, thanks, Dan. The biggest thing that what we're finding is quite often, number one, builders don't have contracts. The painters don't have contracts. They don't understand their contractual obligations when it comes to that. So when they get to the end of the job and they're expecting payment, they get dragged out. And particularly if there's no paperwork in place, that's certainly the biggest issue. There are some ways of dealing, as we discussed, there's some ways of dealing with late payments and that sort of thing. Under the QBCC Payment Act, there's ways that you can actually just go in and put in all of your details, what the job entailed, what money's owing, all of those sorts of things, and leave that to the QBCC to handle, or find other avenues. Like what I quite often will do is I'll actually pick up the phone on behalf of our members that do that, and then from there make that phone call to the builder or the person owing them the money and give them an option whether they want to go into a payment plan. So I'm not actually giving them legal advice. I'm not telling them that they have to do this, but I'm giving them the option that if they don't make their payment, then this is what us as Aussie Painters Network recommend that the painter go down that avenue. And of course, you know, with going through legal and all that sort of stuff is going to cost them, whereas this is a way of doing it that's very, very easy and simple and cheap.
So what are the two, what are the, say, 1 or 2 main documents or things that painters in the painting industry should be doing to give them the best chance of not getting themselves into a hole that they can't get out of?
Get a contract. Full stop. That's it. Have a contract in place. It doesn't mean that if whoever you've got the contract is going to rip you off, they're going to rip you off. There's legal avenues you can go, depending on the situation. But the builders, working with the builders seems to be the biggest one, where we're getting the most people coming through saying, they're just not paying me. It's taken, 28 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. What do I do? I've paid my staff. I'm struggling just to put food on the table. But this has been going for years. It's exactly the same. But now that I think the government's brought in some legislation that's making it a lot easier for the subcontractors.
So I might use that
information to them.
So I might use that as a segue to get your point of view on your world, Penny, with the plumbers. Is that something that you're finding as well? Is that a similar thing in your industry?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Nigel. Number one, you definitely need to have a contract in place. A lot of people think, oh, it's just a handshake, it'll be fine, but you need to have a proper contract in place. Now, I think it depends on the type of work that you're actually performing as well. So if you're going to a consumer's house, you need to make sure that you have a quote and then a contract direct with the consumer. And then also if you're dealing direct with a builder, you need to have a contract direct with the builder as well. In terms of trying to chase payment, yes, there is a bill through Parliament at the moment called the Building Industry Fairness Legislation. And that once that does pass Parliament, obviously has been delayed due to COVID-19, that will have other provisions that will allow people to be able to get their money quicker from builders, which is something that we're very supportive of as well. And it's also going to expand around those unfair terms and contracts, that provisions will be captured as well. So we're very supportive of that new legislation coming through. I think we also need to be mindful, if a plumber is a maintenance plumber and they're going out to consumers' homes all the time, to look at technology around how they can actually obtain payment on site, using their iPhone and their iPads out there to be able to take the money, so they're not having to go away and chase the money afterwards, that they are actually getting payment on spot. And I think that would help a number of businesses as well.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
It's interesting, these different industries going through very, very similar things. And there is an overall umbrella structure for everybody. But I'm finding that people in these industries just aren't aware. They don't even know who to ask. And I don't know if they're just jumping onto online and trying to find the answers there and giving up, or just taking a guess. But the reason why I wanted to do this was to let people know there is professional specific help out there that you can go to, and there's a lot of work being done to protect you, because you do deserve to get paid, because it's so important. So
exactly, it's not acceptable in any other world. You don't expect a teacher to go to work every day and then not be paid for it. So why is it okay for a subcontractor to go to work and not get paid? It's not. And things have improved, but we're still not there yet. Yes, we have the money's owed complaint option through the QBCC, which contractors can obviously put in a claim for. And yes, there are people that have had success in that process, which is great. I was also just going to mention, sorry?
I was going to say with that one, we generally find all it takes is a phone call, just to build up, have someone sort of as a middleman type thing, because whoever the subcontractor is, they're getting angry, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're throwing their hands in the air, and they're irrational. Whereas if you have that third party sort of stepping in as a mediator, that we seem to find when I actually do that as a mediator, we get very, very good results. It's I'd say 90% of builders will pay. It's just a matter of working out what's going on there. And once you...
And I think sometimes subcontractors are too scared to say, hey, the builder owes me X amount of money, because they're worried about not getting the next job. And so they're sort of, they hold out and they hold out and they hold out. But I think times are changing, and I know that people that are using the project bank accounts that are in for government projects between 1 and 10 million, I understand that things are working much better now that those project bank accounts have been implemented. Yep. And obviously moving forward with them coming through, hopefully into the future, for all projects over $1 million, then that will help the industry on a whole. I think also we need to remember it's important to be part of your industry. So join your local association. If you're a plumber, join Master Plumbers. If you're a painter, get part of the Aussie Painters Network. Get involved with those associations because they can help you and connect you to the right people. Yes, people might be able to go on Google and find everything that they need. It doesn't mean it's correct. Go to a reliable source. A lot of associations have partnerships with law firms, with accountants, so that you can build your network and utilize those benefits and services that you get with your association.
So in terms of that third party, I'm sort of doing this in an order, and Helen, I'm going to get you to sort of wrap this up because I sort of see you as the pre, the during, and the after if things go wrong. But the third party side of things often is the bookkeeper and or the accountant, because the bookkeeper or accountant can come from it from a non-confrontational point of view. Like, I'm just doing the books and the paperwork for this client, such and such, just checking this payment, is it on its way through or something or another. So Sandra, if I can go to you, what's your experience of that? Has that helped a lot of people and has sort of stopped it when they get a call from this third party?
It does, absolutely. And I find that exact tact that we would quite often come in and go, okay, and we jump on the phone and go, hey guys, I'm just coming in, we're just tidying up the accounts receivable report, and I've noticed there's some invoices here. I can't find a payment advice, and we just sort of try and approach it that way. And because you are that external third party, they go, okay, they're just doing their job. So there's no emotion attached to it, which sometimes can be a hindrance. So we, being able to sort of be, I guess, separated from the actual transaction does help a lot. And, similar to what Nigel said, sometimes it's just a phone call to see what's going on, or maybe they never got the invoice. There's a lot of things that you can try before you actually, have to end up going down through QBCC or get it.
And Jennifer, from your role, obviously you could do a part of that as well if the business owner, asks you to do it. But in terms of the protection of the business as well, are you finding that most people in the trades industry think that they're in a particular position that they're actually not, and you have to explain to them that, as directors of the company or whatever it might be, what their true liabilities are?
Definitely. I think one of the biggest things is, the most common question that I get answered is, when we let someone know what their profit is for the year, well, where is it? I'm sure Sandra gets that a bit. Where's all this money I'm supposed to be making? And so that's one thing, you can usually look at the balance sheet and you can go, well, yes, you're right. Only 10% of it's in the bank account because 60% of it's in your accounts receivable, and, sort of the rest of it's gone out in drawings, which, you don't actually think of as your profit and everything. So yes, it's interesting, the mindset. There is definitely that aspect of things. But it's interesting, what you say. I've got one client particularly that's a air conditioning mechanic, very, very successful business. But I would say writes off almost $100,000 in bad debts every year, and some of these guys are repeat offenders, fruit shops, just, sort of open, sort of, blaze of glory and sort of go out in a 6-month period. And if you do a lot of work on a cold room like that, it can really mount up. And I've talked to him many times about trying to rein in the accounts receivable, get it under control. But he's basically, he's just determined it's just the cost of doing business, and he's doing well enough in his business that he's able to absorb that, which it makes you shake your head. It really does.
Well, the thing that they don't understand as well, because this is the area that we deal in, is that $100,000 they're missing out on. If their business is on a 10% net profit, they've got to turn over, they've got to do $1 million in sales to make that $100,000. Like the amount, they just don't get it. So we take a bit of time actually explaining that to them. And when the penny drops, they freak out and they go, holy mackerel, I can't afford to have $1,000 because that's $10,000 of sales. So, yeah. And in terms of the asset protection side, are you finding that people, can they be protected these days from, what is there a particular structure that you prefer trades businesses to be in the best possible position if things do go bad?
I think at the end of the day, I sort of settle on companies most of the time. The reason being that, trusts are just no good for the construction industry with QBCC. It's too problematic. So I think companies are still really good. I think anyone that's in any sort of trade industry, should not be set up as a sole trader or a partnership. We sort of spend a lot of time trying to sort of change over to companies for asset protection. So I think that's hugely important. It's almost more important than the tax side of things, because really, a lot of the time there's not a lot of difference overall in the tax, but for asset protection it's huge.
Off the top of my head, I would say, and I'd love to get your opinions, I would say more than 50% of trades businesses out there are sole traders.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. That's one of the first conversations we have is, okay, so what's your setup? Have you considered going over to a company?
That's crazy. So if any tradespeople out there are trading as sole traders, you need to get advice. You need to really make sure that you're in the right position for you, because it's highly likely that you're not. So Helen, want to bring it down to you. Whereabouts do you see this? What sort of experiences are you finding people are having? Because I'm guessing they come to you once the bomb has gone off. And then what could they have done to make life a little bit easier for them?
Yeah, you're right. And I'm trying to get people, Dan, not to come to me when the bomb's gone off. I'm trying to be there during the good times as well. The most successful businesses are proactive about their legals. So they would come and get a lawyer to look over their structure, advise them on that, and then client agreements and things like that. When people haven't been paid, so I get a lot of phone calls from people obviously who haven't been paid, and if they're not a client of mine, they might not have a client agreement at all. I notice, so Nigel and Penny both have said how important it is to have a contract. I talk about this till I'm blue in the face, as you know, Dan. Without that contract, how on earth can you start trying to evidence a deal and chase money? When people phone me and say that they're owed money, the first two things I ask them for is a copy of the outstanding invoices and the contract. And that contract with tradies who deal with residential customers could be a quote and some standard terms and conditions. That's a contract if that's been accepted by the client. And that contract itself needs to have a number of key things in there. It obviously needs to set out the price. It needs to set out what the payment terms are, when you're expecting to get paid. And importantly, what happens if you don't get paid. So things like the ability to charge interest on late payments. You can't do that unless that's written into your contract. The ability to charge for your debt collection fees. Nigel mentioned, it costs money to chase these things. It does. But if your contract has a standard clause in that says that you can recoup your debt collection fees, and that includes legal fees, then we put that onto the person who owes you money. You can't do that unless that's written into the contract. And there's other things as well, I'm suggesting more and more to people, and I'm blogging about this and I'm podcasting, and you can go to my website, riselegal.com.au, and have a look at the blogs, and telling people to change the way they're doing business. Payment terms, change, go from 30 days, go to 15, 14 days, chase things more regularly, ask for more payments up front, more deposits, more stage payments. Be really clear, scope out the job and scope it into stages and say, when we've done this for you, we expect this amount to be paid, and we won't do the next step until that is paid. I love Penny's suggestion about having the electronic means to do that. So you've got a cabinet maker on site, and he's built the carcass, and before the lovely stone bench top comes, let's stop and let's get another stage payment off that client. And if that's written into your client agreement and you can point to it, then the client can't have any issues. If they do, a well-drafted contract should have a suspension right in there to say that you can suspend services until you do get that stage payment. And I could talk about this for hours, but there's some very simple things you can do, and one of those is to have a really well-drafted set of terms and conditions. There's some resources on my website with some free downloads for people who want to check that they've got the terms that they need in there. And I'm more than happy to have a look over these things for people. This is what I do.
So I think ultimately the purpose of doing this was to show people, tradespeople, that business is a team sport. And if you don't have a smart team around you, then you are at unnecessary risk. So like Penny and Nigel were saying, go to them. They're there for a reason. They are well resourced. They deal with this stuff all day, every day. You know, speak to them, connect with them, and then take that information or include your bookkeeper, your accountant, your legal advisor, and get them into a room. And I think a lot of trades, I mean, all businesses, I mean, I'm dealing with all sorts of businesses, they fear the cost and distraction, the cost in time of distraction and the cost in money to do it. But then when it hits the fan and it goes bad, it's nothing compared to what they could be in for in terms of distraction and money and stress. I mean, I've seen this stuff cost families. It really is a something which is so easy to avoid. So look, everyone, I didn't want this to be too long. This has gone for about 20 minutes now, which I think is the right amount of time. But if I could just maybe just a quick little run through of letting us know any final points you wanted to make and the best way for people to contact you. And then we'll sign off on this and we can all post it around and hopefully some people find this useful. So Nigel, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, just one last thing. If you get the opportunity, you know, get a contract put together and see as a subcontractor, try and get your builder to sign to your terms. So rather than the builder supply the contract to you with his terms, know what you're in for. So have that understanding. That's probably one of the biggest things, that you're aware of that rather than their terms in their way.
There's an old saying in business, the person who writes the contract controls the contract.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Penny, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with Nigel. Contracts are so important, and at Master Plumbers, we got specific contracts developed for our members for a range of different categories. So dealing with, they might have subcontractors, so having a contract between them and a subcontractor. Also around having it with a homeowner as well, and then also a contract direct to a builder. Those that have like repeat customers as well, having a specific contract for that as well in place. It's so important so that you do have the ability to chase the money if and when something does go wrong. I think, Dan, you mentioned before about, you know, when things do go wrong, it can destroy families. It can totally destroy families. And I think also suicide, obviously in the construction industry, is really high, and it's something that we need to be really mindful of, and what impact that this could have on individuals. You hear stories all the time when you go out and you talk to people of people committing suicide because of these kind of situations, or they might have, you know, had a marriage breakup, and it's just such a flow-on effect. And if we can put these steps in place to begin with, it could help save not just your business, but your marriage and your family and yourselves, so to speak. In terms of contacting us, you can visit the Master Plumbers Association website. We're at www.mpaq.com.au, and any plumbers in Queensland, you definitely need to be part of our association. Thank you.
And Penny, you're so right. We just had a tragic story ripple through the Brisbane North Chamber of Commerce, where we had a few people take their lives. And it was, you know, I'm sure that business stress was a part of that. And you've just got to do what you can to prepare for when the hard times come. We're in business. We take a risk every day. And we have to do our best we can to protect ourselves and our families. So, yeah, thanks for adding that. It's really important.
Totally agree. And I take my hat off to each and every plumber, trade business owner for, you know, taking that step of running their own business and setting their own destiny and you know, wanting to build a business from scratch and grow it. And I take my hat off to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sandra?
So I think one thing I'd like to add is that, you know, we've talked a lot about the getting paid, getting everything set up, making sure you're correct. It's just back to the basics. Make sure your invoice is set up correctly. Make sure that, you know, that it's got all the appropriate information on it. You know, your name, your contact details. I don't know how many invoices I have seen where there's been no contact details, no bank account details, not even an email address for me to email them. Then I've got to go start, searching to find the details. And, as Penny touched on as well, make it easy for people to pay you. Put your bank details on there. If it's viable, put a payment gateway so they can click on the invoice and add their credit card details. Have their software, if you're doing maintenance work, have software that they can just finish the job off, swipe the card and be on their way. It's really accessible and not very expensive to set up these days. So, it's amazing though, some of those little differences, some of those little things that can make a huge difference as well. I can be contacted. All our details are on our website, tradieBookkeepingSolutions.com.au. We're also going to add up a download, just our invoicing checklist of what you need to put on there. So it can just help, make sure you do an audit and tick those boxes off.
And there's some great software programs that are available and affordable now, where once you set your invoice up correctly, that's it. It's done. Like it's not anything hard.
There's so many different softwares. Whether you're doing just commercial work or projects, then there's different software for if you're doing more residential call outs. Short jobs, the toilet's blocked, or you're just going to do change some PowerPoints or something like that. There's great software that you can set up that does all the work for you. Sends the reminders, sends the text messages, and you just get the tradie to take the payment on the spot.
And even better, you can set them up so that it forces the person, like if you're the tradie business owner, being you have employees doing the work for you, you can set it up so that it forces the person on site to actually take photos, to do the invoicing, to tick off on the swims, to do all this sort of stuff. Like,
absolutely,
great tools out there.
You can set it up as well, like ServiceMate in particular. You can set it up so for the client or the customer to accept the quote to go ahead, they have to pay a 30% deposit or a 10% deposit. You set the amount, so there's half your money up front.
Yeah.
So then, as soon as it's completed, they can take the card details, and you're done. That kind of there's none of that icky you owe me money conversations. It can really put a damper on the relationship. It just takes all of that out, and you can just work on that good, business relationship.
Totally agree. And Jennifer, was there any final points that you'd like to leave us with? Oh, just checking Jennifer's sound. Can you hear us, Jen?
I can now. Sorry about that. I'm back on deck.
Was there any final points that you felt were left out that you'd like to add?
I think the biggest takeaway for me and the client I've seen is how important it is to be prepared with your general bookwork, with your tax returns up to date, with your employee contracts, have some sort of HR framework, because the biggest issues that have come up have been things like accessing the stimulus packages that have been around, and a lot of that relied on having your activity statements lodged, having your tax return having been done, having the notice of assessment. For example, the $250,000 state government loans closed in 4 weeks. So, if you didn't have all of that, sort of tucked up your sleeve, you're out of luck. So I think more than anything, like, now's the time to get everything in order so that you're ready for whatever comes down the track next.
Yeah, absolutely. And Helen, finally for you, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, just a summary really, and agree with what everyone else has said. Having all your ducks in line really does help. And it also helps with that mental side of running a business. The amount of people who I speak to and explain, the simple solutions they can take to solve what they perceive to be massive problems. And they'll always end the phone call with, "Thank you, Helen, I feel much more confident now. I was feeling really anxious before I spoke to you, but I feel much better now." And if you can have a strategy to get these things in place, you don't have to do it overnight, but as long as you know that you need to, work on your company structure and you know who to go to for that, you know that you need a contract and you know who to go to for that. And you've also got great people around you that you can speak to. It might not be that they can help you, but they will have someone in their network that can help you. And just having all of that gives you that more powerful confidence to run your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can, I forgot to say, you can contact me. Second point, contact me at riselegal.com.au. And I have, if you put something through on the contact form, I offer a 15-minute free call with anyone who wants to have a chat with me.
Excellent. And in our role, we help business owners to see where they are financially and their numbers and things like that, and then clean up their database and so that they can grow their business. Our saying is your business is your list, and there's the marketing things. But during that process, it's asking them, so how good is your relationship with your accountant, with your bookkeeper, with your legal person, with whoever it is? Here's someone for you that we know will look after you. Here's someone, here's someone, here's someone. So people like yourselves are so important to me and our network so that we can refer you to our clients so we know they're going to get looked after. And it's amazing how many people out there in the business world still don't know really what an accountant does and can do for them, or a bookkeeper, or their industry connection, or their solicitor or lawyer. They just don't know. So our role is to help expand their context so that they can then come to you and ask better questions and get better help. So I really appreciate your time, everybody. And I'm going to sign off now and to send this out to you to share as you feel would be helpful to people that you deal with from day to day. And again, I just want to say a great thank you for all of your input today. I've learned a lot, and I just couldn't imagine a better group of people to help a bunch of tradespeople.
Thanks, Dan.
Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.